Hello, and welcome to the Unleashed podcast, where we talk about purpose and leadership and the success habits that help individuals step into their full potential and ultimately make their impact. My name is Amelie Miller. I'm your host, and joining us on the show today is Natasha Richards-Kamara. Welcome, Natasha.
Hi, Amy. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for making time to join us today. One thing that always stands out for me about you is how authentic you are and how much yourself you are. And I think that can be really challenging to do, especially for someone you're in a big role. You have built and are currently leading a team in rare disease and genomics. You're also a wife, a mother, and a marathon runner. And that's a lot to balance. So a lot of positives that I'm sure come with their challenges as well. And today we're going to talk about where your competitive drive comes from, how you navigate some of those leadership challenges. And then also I want to learn about the mindset that keeps you going on tough days and through the toughest mile when you're running. We'll talk about that too.
Sure. Sounds good.
Okay, let's dive in. First, I'm curious because you describe yourself as competitive and purpose-driven, beautiful, strong words. I'm curious if you have always been this way or where this comes from for you, this purpose and leading with purpose and your drive.
No, thank you. It's funny, as you were going through just saying my drive, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I took a deep breath because it sounds good on paper, but when you are going through it, there are moments where, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in the podcast, is like refocusing my why, right? Am I busy just to be busy, or is there impact? But like, to answer your question, like in both work and life, my competitive edge comes from a simple standard that my parents instilled in me very early. And I lean in it today and with my kids. Always do your best. And if you're able to look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and say, yes, I gave it my all, then you've answered your question, and the results are what they are. And so like this mindset honestly has been constant throughout school, throughout sports, and also in my career. But that competitive edge, that muscle was, I think, really built as a kid, and that grit, the perseverance, that resilience. But what you learn really quickly is that you may not be able to control every outcome, but what you can control is your effort, your preparation, and your response to things when they may not necessarily go your way. And finally, I'll say is that really what fuels it at a deeper level is, on my mother's side, I am a first generation American. And so my mom and her siblings left everything at home and left their parents and came to this country at a young age, some at 18 all the way to 22, 23, to build a better lives for themselves and our collective family. And that sacrifice has never been lost on me. It's really what drives me. It's driven me from the very beginning to honor that investment by working hard, more importantly, creating opportunities for others, and coupled with my mom's guidance as well as my father's guidance, not wasting the platform that you've been given.
Not wasting the platform that you've been given. Are those your words? I'm curious, or your father's or your mother's?
It's my father's words. You know, you are given a platform, and it's what you do with that platform really is your legacy, like how you influence others. And that has guided me. Like, I'm not saying that there were times as a kid that I didn't get into trouble, or I should have gone left or right and I went the opposite way. But sitting in it is like, at the end of the day, you've been given a platform, and what are you going to do with that platform has always stayed in the back of my mind.
Mm-hmm. Something that you said about at the end of the day, can you look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, did I give it my all? That stood out to me because this is something each night before I go to bed, I ask myself, did you, or I think about how I feel. If I feel like I had a day where I didn't leave anything on the table. And I love those days. I want to go to bed with that feeling. So it's similar to what you shared there. But I notice and have to give myself some grace sometimes that your best and your all can look different every day. I'm curious if you find that and how you give yourself some grace when you do have a day where you feel like maybe your best was a little bit less or different. I don't want to say less than maybe what your expectations for yourself are.
Yeah, no, I think that is a great question. It took me a long time, quite honestly, and because you know there was this thing in my head that I had created to be this superwoman, right? That the career woman, while being a wife and a mother and being into fitness, and but there are also days where I'm just tired or have been tired, and that I would run myself into the ground, like literally, until like it was my body that would literally step in. Either I would catch a cold or something would happen where it like it would be my body telling me that you need to relax, right? Or just take a pause. And so I read a really good book called Essentialism. Have you read that book, or have you heard of that book?
No, what is it called again? Essentialism?
Yes.
Okay. I haven't heard of it, but I'll make a note to check it out.
Yeah, it really helps you to get clear as to what matters. And so for me, it was I needed to put boundaries in place and know when to say no, or when to prioritize. Not because I have a to-do list. I'm great at creating a to-do list.
Love my to-do list. I understand. Yeah.
Because if anything, to me, if it's over my head, I can't calm down, right? I'm like, I just want to get it done. But at the end of the day, it was, is that costing me my health, my emotional well-being, or my presence with my family? Right. And so like, I literally like had to create boundaries. And I realized that the boundaries aren't a lack of commitment, but they were actually a strategy to make me more effective and not less. Right. And so that is really like at the heart of it. And I stopped feeling guilty. I really stopped feeling guilty.
I'm similar to you. I've got to-do lists and I just keep adding to them, and I love crossing everything off. But I got to a point where I was working, because I have that driver personality as well. And it's important to balance it. And so I'm glad that you brought this up, because this is something else that I wanted to ask you. I've worked with lots of phenomenal leaders, men, women. So there's lots of great female leaders out there. And I'm just wondering if sometimes they struggle with balancing that drive and ambition. Like there was a time where I was working 70 to 80 hours a week, and I did that for a long time. And I felt like I liked it and it was okay until, like you said, my body started to let me know. And just I'm curious about how you balance that feminine side of your nature with leadership and all of the demands. And you mentioned boundaries, but curious if there's any other advice you have out there for female leaders or really hardworking driver women to help balance their that drive with their feminine side as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I've had to get really clear and learn that ambition has seasons. Similar to you, am a driver. I am like, let me see if I can crash that glass ceiling. That is me, right? And I mean, like, if it's going to be done, I am sure heck going to try.
I believe you.
That's just how I'm wired, right?
Uh-huh.
And there's times for sprints, and there's also time just to run, to sustain. And that's what I've had to realize. And and at the cost of what? And so that is why, like, I will like share again for any leader, any female leader, like, look, a wife, a mother, a marathon runner, a leader in a demanding industry. It's so easy to get caught up to like justify the actual grind. And I remember being in a leadership session. And the leadership session, I'm drawing a blank on who our speaker was, but what stuck with me, and I actually put it in my calendar. It's listed recurring, the first of every month, be where your feet are. And that literally is what grounds me. Because when you are trying to break those glass ceilings and you are always grinding, you sometimes forget to be present, to be where your actual feet are. And so again, like I, as a female in leadership, as a wife, a mother, and I also prioritize my health. What I had to also prioritize is my mental health and my emotional well-being. And as females, as mothers, as female leaders, that often gets lost because we're nurturers and we want to solve everyone's problems. But that's where those boundaries have to be put into place, because I actually have a sticker on my laptop that says, I'm reading it right now, if it costs you your peace, it's too expensive.
I love that. That gives me goosebumps. That's really good advice.
Yep.
You mentioned, you said be where your feet are, and you mentioned being present. And I think self and social awareness, emotional intelligence, we hear about this, we talk about this a lot. And I think, some of us are more aware self and socially than others. But I think that this is a skill that can absolutely be built and be learned. And where it comes from, where it starts rather, is presence. Because I think a lot of times when we get out of alignment in our careers and in the direction that we're going in our lives, or we just feel unhappy, it's because we're missing something, we're out of alignment with something in our lives. And that can become so easy for so many of us to become stuck, because we're not paying attention to how we're actually feeling. And practicing presence helps you get in touch with how you're actually feeling. And that's acknowledging your feelings is where emotional intelligence, self-awareness starts. I think that, and it sounds like you are and have taught yourself to become increasingly aware of how you're feeling. And so you can set those boundaries and then be more impactful to the people in your life. What is something that you really appreciate about yourself as a human, as a leader? And then what's one thing that you are working to continue to develop and or improve? Because we all have that, and that's okay as well.
Sure. Great question, and ties into what we were just talking about. So what I value the most, and I've had to get comfortable with it, Amy, is I really have had to get comfortable with it, is being authentic, is showing up who I am and being okay with it. And as I grow, refining my authenticity and being okay with it as well too. That's both personally. I think I've always kind of showed up authentic personally, but I would say professionally, I struggled a little bit. And so I've learned to show up as my full self, transparent, grounded, and deeply committed to people I care about, like personally, but also professionally, people who I work with, and patients, because that is the field in which I'm in. And that authenticity builds trust, right? And so particularly for being a people leader, and even personally as well, everything is grounded in trust. And someone can't trust you or learn to trust you if you aren't presenting your true self, right? And so I tend to lead through connection. I'm a connector. That is like when we talk about strength finders or disc or whatever, all of that, my number one attribute is I'm a connector. And I try to find ways or something to connect with someone somehow. And when I
Hmm.
do that is when I show up authentically. I'd also say that like I pride myself on meeting people where they are.
Hmm.
Wasn't always like that.
That could
Um,
be a hard one.
it's it, it's a hard one. However, when you're looking to connect with someone, you have to meet them where they are,
Hmm.
and you
Hmm.
also have to be vulnerable. And so that vulnerability is a two-way street. And so I often or I hope that people meet me where they are. So if I'm asking for that, I also have to reciprocate that.
Hmm.
And that is really how, from a leadership standpoint, I think that I've been able to, not that I think, I know I've been able to adapt my style based on the individual's needs, where they need support, structure, encouragement, as
Hmm.
well as honest feedback.
Yeah.
Um, and so like a growth fact, like we all can grow. And it ties into what I shared with you before is being okay with no boundaries. Like no
With
is
you telling others no.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It,
Yeah.
it goes back to essentialism, like prioritizing what matters. Either me telling people no and or me telling myself no, right? Like it's not the time. You
Hmm.
may want to do this, but getting clear and understanding what matters most at this point in time. Um, and so that is a current growth for me. Like no is a full sentence, and I don't have to justify it because there
Yes.
are times where I'll say no, and I'm saying no because of this, right? Because I always love to give context. If you talk to anyone right now, they will tell you, like, I will make a statement and then I'll say, I like to give you context behind my answer because I don't like to let people down, or I don't want to ever feel that I haven't showed up for someone. So that's still something that I'm working on
Hmm.
because my natural bias is always yes. It's
Okay.
always. Um, but I'm leaning
My natural bias is no.
oh, it is. My natural bias is always yes, but like I'm leaning in this season, I'm leaning to impact. What is the impact? Because I can say yes, and my heart's not in it. I can
Hmm.
say yes, or I'm not showing up my best self, as we talked about. First question at the end of the day: have I shown up my best self? Have I given my all?
Hmm.
And so for me now, that impact comes with focus. And I keep landing into this essentialism book because I've had to read it again to like refocus.
Yeah.
But there are two principles. It's the principle of less but better. So like
Yep.
the impact comes from narrowing, not adding.
Hmm.
And then the idea that if you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. That like is
Absolutely.
a drop for me. Um,
Absolutely. That's such a good line. Say it again. I didn't mean to step on it.
oh yeah, no. So the idea that if you don't prioritize your life, someone else will,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so investing my time, energy, protecting my space for deep work, right? At work, family and health allows me now, like in my season, that I have greater clarity, presence. And when and I'm going to use the word integrity, but it's less of integrity and really intentionally being where my feet are.
Hmm. Absolutely. And that's how you're going to make your impact. I understand firsthand how challenging it can be to set those boundaries. Just being someone that works for myself, people will, like friends and family, important people in my life will often think that I just can be flexible. But no, you mentioned deep focus. Well, I have to really protect my time and draw boundaries so that I can have time for that deep focus because that's how I'm going to better impact others. And I'm surprised that your answer, and I love how you answered this question on or what you shared around being authentic. And I was surprised to hear that that was a challenge for you. And then you said that you've always been pretty much showing up as yourself in your personal life, but it can be a challenge in your professional life. I just want to bring that back up because I think that, well, I know, how challenging it can be because when we are, but the reason real quick I was surprised is because to me, you show up fiercely as like 1000% yourself is how I like to say it. And I think that's so important. And doing that, practicing being 1000% yourself. And I know how hard it is because people and opportunities fall away. But if they fall away, then it wasn't, your opportunity. And by being yourself, that's the only way to attract and align with the people and opportunities that are meant for you and to create that connection. And I love that you mentioned connection as well. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you're enjoying the conversation as much as I am. Just a quick note, I work with leaders helping them make lasting hires with less stress, including customizable hiring workshops, executive search, or stepping in as a fractional talent partner, including interview process design, hybrid recruiting, and coaching support throughout. You'll find links below if you'd like to learn more. And now let's get back to our show. In leadership, has there been, I don't know if you want to share, however you want to answer this question, you can, but I don't know if there's maybe been a specific experience where you had to navigate that challenge of, being yourself in leadership. Maybe your idea or your decision didn't align with executive level leadership, for example, or maybe an opportunity didn't work out. But curious if you've had that experience and how you navigated it, or if there's a different area that you want to go with that question, that's fine too, because it's kind of a tough one.
Sure. No. Yes. And this was definitely a pivotal point in my career. So there was a time, I would say 10 years ago, and maybe even 10 years ago. I think that's around right. Where my point of view really didn't align with executive leadership. And there was like a leader, particularly intentionally or not, he wanted his direct reports, which included me, to be a replica of him, literally, and how he coached and how we coached the team. He wanted us to coach the team his way, how we showed up, the way that he showed up, even at times using his language and his style, right? Literally, like replica. And at first, I tried to adapt. So I was probably year 5. So still green in leadership, still wet behind the ears. I had went from district to regional manager by then. But like in my gut, I knew I wasn't being authentic to who I am, but I was comparing my authenticity showing up personally. I did not know how to show up authentically from a leadership standpoint because I was still so green. And like, I remember clearly saying to him, because I'm direct, I said to him one time, I said, my leadership is not yours. You're asking me to do this. That's not me. And then he asked me a simple question, but it was so powerful. He said, so what's your leadership style? Amy, I was a loss for words.
Yeah.
And I usually am not lost for words, but I was a loss for words. And at that moment, I couldn't answer. And that really stuck with me. And I was uneasy because I wasn't confident, right? And so I needed clarity. And I was uneasy because it's not that I disagreed with him, but it was because I fully hadn't realized and defined my own leadership style from my own strengths and my own superpowers. So I went searching. Like in my office, I have shelves of leadership books. I was taking leadership classes, but it wasn't to replica someone else. It was really to understand, what are my superpowers? What qualities do I bring? And how do I want to influence and show up as a leader? And so that experience became an inflection point. And I read a book called Leaders Eat Last. I love to read. And so I read a book called Leaders Eat Last and reflected on the leaders that I had admired in the past. And I paid attention to what felt most like myself, what was most effective when I was like serving, developing, and like protecting my team. And I don't want to use the word protecting, but more so supporting, because there's a difference between protecting and supporting, not enabling them, but supporting them. And over time, I realized that my leadership really was grounded in service, trust, empowerment. That like those are the three keys in like the three pillars in my leadership style and showing up authentic. And if you're looking for a book, like a book definition, it would be transformational leadership. And that really is what bubbled up, right? And underneath that is servant leadership. So said a lot, but I went on a journey to really define and outline and put in action as to who I am today. And the leader that I am today, and I often tell people this, the leader you guys have today is not the leader I was 15 years ago. It definitely has been a journey.
You touched on so many key factors there. You mentioned, a pivotal point. So we started that question around a challenge around showing up as yourself authentically in leadership, and we also have talked about presence and being where your feet are. You did that in that moment rather than shying away from the discomfort, avoiding the discomfort, trying to cover it up or with something else, or reach for instant gratification, which is human. We want to feel better, but you sat with that discomfort, and this is such a power move. All of the times, so many times in my life, those pivotal times that I can think back to stemmed from discomfort. And I sat with the discomfort. And that's something that I've gotten really good at, because so much growth comes from that. Look at all what came after that uncomfortable moment. First, with you stepping up to be yourself and realize, you know what, I can't be like this leader. I have to be myself. And then you standing up for yourself and expressing that to him. And it turned into a positive experience. Not that it wasn't challenging, but you just shared so many great things there. So I wanted to recap on a few of those. And this flows nicely into, I was going to ask you about your leadership style. And so you shared it's transformational leadership. And I'm curious how your leadership style helps you to empower your team so that they feel comfortable and confident showing up as themselves. You're modeling that in your behavior as well. And then also how you balance that with driving accountability and results.
That is a great question. I'm going to sit in this one for a second.
Yeah, take your time.
Accountability, I often say, is not a dirty word. And I'm smiling because I just said this to my team last week. It is really tying commitments, the commitment that you made to the results. And first it starts with alignment, right? And so, and so for me, I would say building a high performing team aligns to the values. And so we are aligning on because the values are the actual pillars, and then your values lead to the behaviors, which ultimately will ultimately lead to accountability, which will ultimately drive the actual performance in which you are looking to create. And so anytime that I'm leading a team, a new team, bringing in new folks into the team, the forming, storming, norming, and then performing, I always anchor us into what are the values of this team. If we are building this, like how companies have a mission statement, it's a value statement, and we're creating it together as a team. And so we're aligning. We also have a team name to where that name is our brand. And so everything that we do, our output,
Mhm.
our coaching, our peer leadership, our peer coaching, so to say, because the teams that I lead, I am coaching them and developing them not for their current role, but for future roles. And so everything is aligned to leadership. And a pillar of leadership is also accountability in influencing behavior, and so that there is a positive output. I don't
Mhm.
know if I answered your question fully, but I took the accountability piece first.
No, I love how you answered the question. I like that you specifically that you started with values because I'm really big on helping the importance of helping individuals identifying their what truly drives them because that's
Mhm.
going to inspire motivation. Oftentimes,
Yes.
when we're not feeling motivated, it's not because we're not motivated people. It's because we're likely doing something that doesn't pique our motivation. It doesn't drive us. So if you can identify and like dig for that, identify it and give it a label, well, it's going to be tied to your values, and then that's going to drive your goals and the behavior in working toward your goals.
I mean, absolutely. Like it is that ownership mindset, right? And so so that is really what I try to lean in with the team. I don't want to use the word preach, but that is what I try to share with them. Is it's an ownership,
Yeah.
and and on a team, everyone plays a part. And so the part that you play, what are you owning?
Hmm.
Right. And so for me, when I'm building a team, creating a win-win environment, it's not just about managing a number because I'm in sales, right? It's really about building people
Hmm.
and building people through clear expectations, challenging them to grow, as
Hmm.
well as supporting them along the way. And in doing that, my hope is that I'm creating a culture of high care, and so you're invested, but
Hmm.
also a culture of high accountability through that real-time feedback and like regular check-ins. And like the regular
Yeah.
check-ins really is the human side of things. I'm not checking in on your numbers. That's a given. I'm checking in to see how are you doing?
Hmm.
How can I support? Right. And I'll finally say this, like for any team in which I'm supporting. Accountability is like trust, right? And so trust
Yes.
is not given, it's earned.
Hmm.
And accountability is influencing and transferring that ownership from you to them. And
Yeah.
that really starts with I believe in you,
Hmm.
I'm going to challenge you, and
Hmm.
I'm going to support you. When your team has that faith in you, everything else is easier.
Yeah. Because then that sets them up to have the faith in themselves. And that's what people need to feel. I'm tying in again back into motivation. If we don't have clear expectations, if we don't have the support, we don't know where the resources are or how to find the resources or whether or not they're there, and we don't have accountability, the capacity to do the job in the way that works for us, we're not going to feel motivated.
Nope, we're not. We're not, and we're not going to feel supported.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm sure that you often hear this. One of the things that matters to people the most, while they say culture, part of it's just being supported. They want to be heard, and they want to
Yeah.
know that their leader is truly invested in them, cares about them,
Hmm.
and will support them.
Absolutely. Yeah. All great elements to inspire motivation in your team. Uh, let's leave on. I want to hear a little bit about your marathon running, and I understand you are running for a cause. If you could share with us a little bit about the cause, and then um, I'm just curious. I'm a runner myself. I've never run a
Okay.
marathon. I've run a half marathon. But for marathon runners, the question that always comes up for me is what is the toughest mile for you personally? And what do you tell yourself to get yourself through the toughest mile? So first, let's hear about the charity, and I'll link that in the description too, in case anybody's curious about it. But I'd love to hear you share.
Sure. Yes. And so the charity that is close and dear to my heart is called Shoes for Africa. And it's a charity that has been around for a while, but now the platform is now getting bigger. I would say, like with celebrity support. And so, Shoes for Africa, it started by just a group of marathoners or runners giving their year-old shoes, 2-year-old shoes, because when you're running a marathon and you're training, usually at the end of it, it's time for a new pair of shoes. Not really because the soles are gone, but the treading and how you run and train and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so rather than throwing them away, it was, well, let's collect the shoes and let's give them to kids in sub-Saharan Africa to where they don't even have shoes on their feet. They're walking barefoot, right? And so and so that is how it started. And then as the CEO, Toby Tanner, became more and more involved, it was, man, kids are dying from cancer in sub-Saharan Africa. And 8 out of 10, excuse me, don't survive, nor do they even have the means to go to a hospital and seek treatment. And so in sub-Saharan Africa, this charity started out by building, I would say, the first formal school for kids, taking care of their actual school fees. And now it has migrated into building the first pediatric oncology children's hospital in sub-Saharan Africa. And so literally $50, $25 goes a long way. This past August, I ran for the charity in the Sydney Marathon. And at that time, the roof was actually going on the children's hospital. And so as you can see, I'm smiling because sometimes, like when we think about charity work or giving, we think it has to be thousands of dollars. Mm-hmm. But in third world countries, it could be as simple as 5 or 10.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. That is, I think, our perception, how we think about charity. Yeah, it's got to be a big amount. Okay.
Yes, for sure. I in 2024, I ran for another charity, and I'll get to why I run marathons, but it was to provide clean water for those same kids in sub-Saharan Africa. Mm-hmm. And how $5 a day is able to give them, $5 in general will actually give kids clean water for about a month. So again, it goes back to not even, and the way that I was, talking to friends and colleagues is, guys, that's us going to Starbucks for a cup of coffee, right? And so, and it goes a long way. So running is more than a cause for me. It's actually therapy. And while I have been running since grade school, I was a sprinter in middle school, high school, and I even walked on freshman year in college. But I became a distance runner in a marathon, and a marathoner actually after the tragic loss of my older brother. And so I started running half marathons and full marathons in 2016. Before that, I was doing 5Ks, 10Ks, etc. Mm-hmm. But it gave me the space to grieve, to like process grief, and like the rhythm of my feet on the pavement. So even today, when I'm having a hard day, just in general, or like it's been a long day, I'll lace up my shoes for like a 5K, and I feel so much better after it. it quiets my mind. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, or in the process of grief, right? So it started with my brother. I lost my father earlier this year. It's also have been moments of where I could have that reflection with God, right? And so those quiet moments with my faith.
Yeah. So you
Um,
developed something, I call it a success habit. This is a healthy habit out of something that was painful.
yep.
And that's the way it often happens in building these habits that help us ultimately make our impact.
Yeah, absolutely. It was turning pain into purpose.
Hmm.
And so I often say running a marathon is 15% physical. Like you have to do the work. You cannot, as a runner, you can't fake running. For half marathons, you can't fake it. You have to, or else
Yeah,
you're
well
shit.
trained. Yeah,
Yeah, you're going to feel it every step of the way. And
yeah.
like 85% is mental. And so for a full marathon, the marathon actually begins at the half at 13.1. And like to me, like that is when like the first 13 miles is just the warm up. But it gets real that second half. And the toughest miles for me is either mile 17 or 18.
Okay.
You're like, I'm close enough, but not that close and still far enough to even doubt why I signed up. Literally.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Okay.
that's when like the self-doubt and the imposter syndrome creeps in.
Hmm.
But because I've been running enough marathons for a while, having a playlist, like I am strategic into like different miles. I play different songs, knowing that that's the jolt that I need. That's,
That's very smart.
yeah,
Okay.
I
I never thought
am.
about that.
Oh yeah, I am strategic with my play, like with the songs down to the miles. Like I've gotten there over the years, through marathon running. It's a science. Running a marathon is a science.
Hmm.
Um, but two songs. I believe that We Will Win by Pitbull. The words are like, it's not how you start, it's how you get back up again, right? It talks
Yes.
about the finish. So that
I
is a
like
good
that. Okay.
song. And then I've lived by One Republic. Love that song. And if there was a song to like sum up my life, that is what it is. Like at the end of
Mm.
the day, when it's all said and done, like at the sunset, I've had no regrets. I've lived with purpose. I've helped others, right? And so it goes back to using my platform, being present, all of the things that we've just kind of talked about
Hmm.
sums up that song. And while those final miles are still hard, it resets my mind, it reconnects me to my why, and that refocus carries me through to the end.
I can't think of a more perfect note to end the conversation on. Just tied it up in such a perfect bow. And I didn't plan it that way. I was going to ask this question earlier, but thank you so much for sharing all of that. Very inspirational. And what you shared there, anybody can take and apply to other areas in their life, not just fitness. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's been such a pleasure, and thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And thank you to our listeners. Hope that you enjoyed. If you did, remember, go ahead, hit like and subscribe. That way we can stay connected. And I always like to remind you that your next step doesn't have to be big. It just has to be yours. And so just keep going in the direction that feels aligned for you, and you'll be going the right way. We'll see you next time.